What if you only worked 15 hours a week? No, seriously, stop and think about that for a second. Not as a one-off vacation, but as your normal life. What would you even do with all that extra time? Now, this question isn't some new age tech fantasy. It's actually the key to understanding the massive economic earthquake that AI is causing, a shift that's forcing us to question everything we thought we knew about work, about value, and maybe even about ourselves. 15 hours? I mean, compared to the 40, 50, or even 60 hours so many of us grind through every week, it just sounds impossible, right? But get this. Almost 100 years ago, one of the most brilliant economic minds in history didn't just think it was possible. He predicted it was basically inevitable. The man who said this was John Maynard Keynes, and he said it way back in 1930, in the middle of some really tough economic times. But he wasn't worried about how we'd make a living in the future. He was worried about what on earth we would do with our lives once we didn't have to worry about that anymore. So why are we digging this up? Well, because this isn't just some quirky history lesson. It's a century-old prophecy. And thanks to AI, it is knocking on our door, right now. Okay, so why should you care what this Keynes guy thought? Well, because he's pretty much the father of modern macroeconomics. I mean, his ideas are the playbook that most governments still use to run their economies today. So when he made a big prediction about the future, it wasn't just a wild guess. It was based on a really deep understanding of how our world works. And Keynes wasn't vague about it either. He actually put a deadline on his prophecy, 100 years. He said that by 2030, technology would have solved what he called the economic problem, the basic struggle for survival. And here we are, just a handful of years away from that deadline, staring down a technological leap that even he probably couldn't have imagined. His vision for the future was, frankly, incredibly optimistic. He pictured a world where the fight for food and shelter is just over, and our biggest challenge becomes, what do we do with all our free time? He really believed we'd stop the endless chase for more money and instead get back to valuing things like creativity, community, what he called the arts of life. So, if that was the dream, what's our reality looking like? Well, that brings us to the great paradox of our time. We have the technology Keynes dreamed of. AI can automate not just physical jobs, but thinking jobs too. And yet, that utopia he described feels like it's getting further and further away.
Here's the disconnect, plain and simple. Instead of a problem of leisure, we're staring down a problem of purpose as jobs start to disappear. Instead of a return to deeper values, we're seeing wealth get concentrated into fewer and fewer hands. And instead of freedom from economic anxiety, a lot of people are feeling more insecure about their jobs than ever before.
You see, what makes this technological shift so different is what it's replacing. All the big revolutions before this one automated human muscle. AI, it automates the human mind. It's cranking up what Keynes himself called technological unemployment to a level that would have blown his mind. And far from making us care less about getting rich, AI is threatening to put that whole obsession on steroids. The insane amount of value these systems can create could flow to a tiny group of people who own the tech, making the gap between the rich and everyone else astronomically wider.
All of this is pushing us to a critical breaking point. If the old ways of doing things are falling apart, we have to ask a really fundamental question. In a world with AI, what do work and worth even mean anymore?
Think about it. Our main scorecard for a country's economy is GDP, gross domestic product, which is basically output per person. So, what happens when the main workers aren't people anymore? How on earth do you measure a nation's productivity when one AI can do the work of thousands 24/7 without ever taking a coffee break? Okay, let's bring this right down to a simple, everyday example. Let's say in your new 15-hour work week, you get really, really good at making fried rice. You perfect the recipe, you share it with your neighbors, you teach your kids how to make it, you build a whole little community around your amazing fried rice. That creates a ton of human value, right? But how does our current economic system measure that? The short answer, it doesn't, not really. You see the problem? Our entire 20th century economic model is built on one thing, tying value to human labor. And that system is becoming obsolete, fast, which leaves us with the defining challenge of our generation. What are the new metrics for a healthy society? Is it happiness? Creativity? The quality of our human connections? This line of thinking leads to a conclusion that is, well, it's pretty startling. It's a concept that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction, but when you think about it, it follows a kind of cold, hard logic.
So, if Keynes made his big prediction for 2030, it feels like it's time for a new one. Let's look a little further down the road this time. Let's talk about the year 2045.
Welcome to the idea of GDP per robot capita. Yeah, you heard that right. It's a potential new way to measure the economy in a future where the main unit of production, the capita, isn't a person, but an AI. And the logic to get here is actually pretty simple. Step 1. Humans work way less, or maybe not at all in the traditional sense. Step 2. AI becomes the main engine of the economy. Step 3. To measure that new economy, you'd have to identify and register all the productive AIs. And at that point, step 4, it just makes more sense to measure your output per robot than per person. It's a wild thought, I know, but it's kind of where the trend lines are pointing. So, where does all this leave us? It all points toward one final, really urgent challenge that we have to face.
Figuring all this out, these new economic models, this isn't just some abstract exercise for academics. This is the fundamental challenge for our humanity right now. How we decide to measure value and how we decide to share the incredible wealth that AI is going to create, that is going to define what society looks like for generations to come.
Make no mistake, the economic revolution is already here. And yeah, that's unsettling, but it's also this incredible, once-in-a-civilization opportunity. If we get this right, if we can figure out how to manage this new world of abundance, we could unleash human potential on a scale we've never seen before. We could launch a brand new golden age of science, and we're going to explore exactly what that could look like in the next explainer.